folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to another Board Game Breakfast. Well, some items of news here. First of all, if the bad news, or maybe good news, depending on if you like our show or not, next Monday there will be no Board Game Breakfast, thankfully. This year we're able to take a vacation, so the first week of May is where it worked out for me and my family to go on vacation. So we'll be gone that week. There will be some stuff showing up that week. Some reviews and things as time goes by, and Z will be manning the fort, but there won't be any Board Game Breakfast. But there will be a Board Game Blender, so that's good. Also, Origins is around the corner, coming up at the beginning of June. That's not that far away. If you're coming to Origins, first of all, we love to say hi to you. But secondly, there's an event registration, and there's one right now on Saturday night at 9 o'clock. We're doing a Dice Tower live show. We'll have us and the guys from Secret Cabal and other reviewers from the Dice Tower, and different people will be showing up. So we would love to have you stop by and come to that. There's a $2 fee. That's something that Origins put in place. It is what it is, but we'll try to prize and stuff to make up for that. So I hope to see you guys at Origins for that. So come on out to that. Okay, well, don't forget to check out Dice Tower for all the different news. Today, we'll be doing a live question and answer. I'll be doing one at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I'll be able to talk to you guys then. But let's get to the news. Okay, first of all, as I just mentioned, Origins, the Origins Award nominees were put out, and I should give the disclaimer that I am on the nomination committee for the board games. The games that were nominated there were Abyss, Battle of Five Armies, Cash and Guns 2.0, Dead of Winter, and Sheriff of Nottingham. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, of course, Sheriff of Nottingham, but I did not vote for that game, so it made it in without my vote. With the card games, there was Among the Stars, Linko, Star Realms, Sushi Go, and Splendor. So let me make some predictions here. I think among the critics, or the people on the committee voting, I think we're going to see Dead of Winter win the board games, and I think it will win the People's Choice. Among the critics, I think we're going to see Star Realms win the card game, but People's Choice, I think, will be Splendor. That's just me guessing. And then there's some other categories, historical gaming and children's and family party, which is a dumb category, but you can go look at it. Mission Red Planet is being reprinted, huzzah! Okay, well, we kind of knew this was coming, but Fantasy Flight has now announced it with some really cool artwork, still keeping the steampunk theme, getting rid of the annoying little discs, and having little plastic dudes. If you've never played Mission Red Planet, it is a great game. Good to see this one coming back. Also, another great game, Queen's Necklace, which was one of the first Days of Wonder games, is being reprinted not by Days of Wonder, but by Cool Mini or Not, with nary a miniature in the box. Of course, they've done Xenoshift, so this would not be their first game without miniatures, but still interesting, and it's a great game when it comes out. The Artisans of Nakawa, this is an expansion for 5 tribes, which adds another tribe, so I guess it's now going to be called 6 tribes? I have no idea, but 5 tribes obviously is very popular, so this one should be 2. Smash Up, it's your fault, says AEG. It is a new expansion coming out where we're going to get to vote on it. Right now they're having like a write-in, so you can write in anything you want, and then they're going to take the factions that got the most votes, and then we'll vote on those and narrow it down. Now, if you're like me, you went in and voted for Cowboys. Cowboys. But there's also a lot of other cool factions that you can do. But Cowboys, get those in there. And let's see here, the 7th wave of ships for Star Wars. So they are not abandoning X-Wing now that Armada's out. And this has some ships, the Houndstooth, Bosk! Yeah, Bosk! And then some other ships, the Krons, the K-Wing. How many wings are there? K-Wing sounds like a breakfast cereal. I looked it up. Apparently it's a real ship. And I was like, well, really? Is there an M-Wing then? And yes, there is. But there's no S-Wing. Swing! And then a TIE Punisher and other things. Okay, well, that's pretty neat. Let's see what's happening in Kickstarter. Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel.
Jason Levine.
And today our question is about women. One of our listeners wrote in and said, is the depiction of women in gaming kind of cliche? Like many games today, they'll show the big guy, the barbarian, or the knight come in this big armor, and then the women will come in a chainmail bikini. There's not very much at all. And that's kind of cliche and really kind of sexist. And he said that some games are moving away from that. Myth didn't do it at all. Correct. And Robinson Crusoe.
Pandemic has strong women in it.
Right. So he's saying, is the cliche the trend, or is it changing?
It's a little of both. I mean, there's always going to be those games, the Japanese anime style where the women are all falling out of their outfits, and that's going to always be part of the gaming experience. But I like that women characters are stronger in a lot of games now, like Pandemic, for instance. You have scientists and other people who are women also to show that women are just as equal as men, which is the truth.
I actually prefer games like Robinson Crusoe, where you can flip the card over and it's a man on one side and a woman on the other.
Yeah.
And there's like no differentiation between it other than, there isn't any. I mean, it's just the character and the art. And I like that. I think there's a trend that's moving that way, but the hobby as a whole still has problems. But I think that in more serious board gaming, we're seeing the trend move. And if the more you get towards the lighter side, then you see that problem is more exasperated. I don't think video games have gone as far as they should have, so the more that the game might appeal to them. Although I would say that there's some pretty strong characters, female in Sentinels of the Multiverse, and some other games, and I know we're probably forgetting a couple, but yeah, there's still some games and you're like, yeah, this is going to get more women into gaming, and I think that's sad because...
Metroid was the ultimate woman...
Well,
back in the day,
sort of. Although the fact was, you didn't know she was a woman until the very end. So
true.
I think it would have been better maybe if they had made that clearer. Well, they did in future ones.
Yes.
But anyhow, hey, this is a big deal. We want our hobby to be inclusive of everyone, and as someone who has a few daughters, I really believe in that, and I'm kind of disappointed when it doesn't go that way. In fact, today I just banned the game from my house that showed up that was just exploitation, essentially, and I don't have time for that sort of nonsense. So let's hope it's a trend, would be my answer.
I agree. I mean, yes, obviously cartoony style, you see all that, everything from Yu-Gi-Oh on, everything's cartoony and all the women are very cartoony, but I don't think that should be the bulk of the gaming. I think the opposite, like what we're talking about, should be what the bulk of the gaming is.
And you can make the difference in that with your purchasing dollars and if you're a designer/publisher. All right, until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
Jason Levine.
Send us your questions at dicetower@gmail.com.
Hey everybody, Steve here, and here's the AFR 2-minute drill. So my daughter just turned 5 this past weekend, so I'm feeling a little nostalgic. And so I wanted to ask everybody, do you feel that board games are a good way to hold on to nostalgia, to create memories, and something you'll look back on? For myself, one of the reasons that I love sports games so much is I'm able to go back and relive some of my favorite seasons. So if I want to go back and remember Shaquille O'Neal's rookie season, I'll just grab the 92-93 season, break out my replay basketball game, and suddenly I'm taken back in time to my senior year of high school and the music of the time and everything that was going on in my life at that point. And then also, another great thing is I can be transported to a place in time that I could never possibly visit. For instance, right now up on Kickstarter, there's the 1884 season for Pine Tar Baseball. Talk about traveling back in time. And this takes us to a place in the history of baseball, even before the World Series was going on. And again, a really fantastic way to travel to somewhere we could possibly never go to, except on our tabletop. Alright guys, I guess that's enough nostalgia for now. Be sure to check out the AFR channel every Tuesday night for all the sports board game news, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter for breaking news throughout the week. Until next time, my name's Steve, and you've been watching the AFR 2-minute drill.
We had 3 things to look at today. So first we're going to look at some coins from Fantasy Coin LLC. This is from their Kickstarter going on right now, Fantasy Coins and Bars. Now, these are actually really neat. The coins here are some of the best quality that I've seen. And this is tough because we really live in an era now where people are making coins of different qualities. One of the ones I saw on the Kickstarter that I really liked, I don't have any here to show you, are basically Lords of Waterdeep coins. But this one here I like very much. It has a different, you can see that it has some kind of like holes in it. It just has a different look than many other coins. So some of the coins you can put together. Here's another cool shape. I like this one with the swords. This is a good pirate coin. And then there's these bigger, these are like bars, basically. I don't know how often you would use these, but maybe you want to use these as like a larger denomination. But obviously these are probably meant more for fantasy games than for board games. But still, a lot of these I'm sitting around going, ooh, which board game could I replace the coins in with these? And you can see there's many different ones. But that's not the only thing that they have, or these besides these coins. These really impress me, these gems here. Now, these are big gems. I mean, look at my finger next to it. That's a pretty large size. And they're really durable. I mean, I watched the video that they had where they were basically dropping coins. And, you know, they mixed the coins with the gems to give a nice treasure chest feel. And the gems stayed pretty good. Now, as a board gamer, what could you use these gems for? Well, the first thing I thought of was obviously Splendor. I mean, yeah, Splendor has those great poker chips. But what would people think if you had one where you actually grabbed colored gems? That'd be pretty neat. So that's an idea. Actually, that's the only idea I have. But I just thought these were neat. And then there's these ridiculous bars. This one here looks like a belt buckle. Okay, but look at this sucker here. That's a silver bar. I have no idea what I'm going to use this for. But you can bet I'm going to use it for something. Even if it's the first player marker in the game. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to be using the gold bar. Again, these are big. Look how big they are, and they're hefty. I mean, when you have this out, you're like, yeah. Again, these maybe are more useful for role-playing games than board games, but still, pretty nifty. There's some other cool coins and stuff set in this campaign, and I thought the price was pretty reasonable, so go check them out. And here's the final stuff from the Trinity War, set from the Justice League organized play kits from Marvel. We have the Outsider here, where you can draw a die from your bag. If it's a villain die, you can get it right on the table. Another Wonder Woman here. When she's active, if someone's KO'd, she can spin another character up one level. I guess that's oh, someone died, I'll bring, I'm angry. Firestorm. When they're active, your opponent can't field Justice League characters. Your opponent can pay 2 life to ignore that. But if you're playing against someone else with Justice League, now this is kind of a very specific one, but it's a neat one. And then, of course, a Batman, when he's fielded, hey, I can purchase a Robin die for 1 less. So you want Batman and Robin together, this is the Batman to use. And finally, Atomica, who will come with her own die. While she's active, you can swap her with a villain die in your reserve pool. That is amazingly cool, especially with some really powerful villain dice. So these are some cool cards that are coming up. And finally, I want to show you today a custom dice box, which is actually from the website Custom Dice Box. Now, this is a dice tray, and even though our show's called the Dice Tower, I actually use these more than dice towers because they work really well. I mean, let's say I'm rolling some ghost story dice. I can roll them right in here, and they bounce off the walls. And you can see here that this Dice Tower logo is really sharp looking. This is a pretty impressive looking tray, and it's very light. I mean, usually these trays are much heavier. You can see the back here has like that photo type thing in, so I guess you could put anything you want in here. But it works really well. I throw my dice in, and they go up against the walls as you roll the dice. So if you're looking for your own custom thing, he has also an Etsy and an eBay shop, but this is pretty cool, and I'm glad to have this on my shelf.
So, this is a pod/webcast of board games, not RPGs, although I have noticed they do get mentioned from time to time. I will confess that recently I have been somewhat to blame for that myself.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons was
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons. And yes, it's not a board game.
So we've talked about how many board games try to emulate RPGs, but in less time-consuming, less committal, less complicated ways. Games such as Defenders of the Realm, or Descent, or Legends of Andor, there's lots of examples. Now there was one RPG mechanic that is noticeably absent from almost every game, and that is the race-class combo. You see, when I make a character in Dungeons & Dragons, I can play a dwarf fighter or an elven ranger. Or I can play a dwarven ranger or an elf fighter. The choice is mine. Granted, in some games like Descent, you can choose your character and then you get to choose like a talent tree. So there is some customization there. But it would be really easy for a game to have a set of cards that are your race, that give you different powers, and then have a set of cards that are your class that give you a different set of powers, and you can mix and match to create your character. I know this is easy because they've been doing it in Small World since 2009. Moreover, they've been doing it in Dungeons & Dragons since 1978. Now, gradually, a couple other games have started to emulate this idea, where there's a two-part combination where you get to choose to design your own character. There's that game, Heroes Wanted. Something that's cool about this game is your choice of a two-part combination determines not only the mechanics of your character, but also the theme. And then there's also Shadowrun Crossfire that incorporates that. So all you game designers out there, if you want to make the next great co-op, please keep this special mechanic in mind.
So what's coming out for the Dice Tower this week? Well, we'll be doing a top 10 list that you'll see coming out this Thursday. This is one people have been asking us to do for a while. Top 10 gateway games. Games that we would personally use to introduce new people to the hobby. We're also going to be doing a lot of different review videos. Many of them have already been recorded. The one I think that you'll find some interest in, Penny Press. So keep an eye out for that one. And then a bunch of smaller games we'll be talking about this week. And of course, all the different podcasts. So we're working hard at getting all the podcasts from the different podcasts in the network updated on the site, so it will show the different games that are involved there. Maybe you're a fan of a podcast and you want to help that podcast keep those up to date, but it's really cool as it all crisscrosses. You'll also notice that on the Dice Tower website, you're going to start seeing reviews from other video reviewers there. That does not mean they're part of the Dice Tower network. It's because I think the Dice Tower website should be a place that people go and find the best reviews. And they're not just Dice Tower reviews. Other reviewers do a good job too. So family-friendly, good video reviews you'll see from other people showing up there. So hopefully it can be a one-stop shop for you to go to find the best in reviews on board gaming. Okay, here we go again.
I'm Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise, and last time I was in the process of responding to a viewer question.
Hey Chaz, what are your thoughts on Tabletop Simulator?
Well, last episode we discussed just what Tabletop Simulator is. This time I'll conclude with my impression on its place in the board game hobby. Now, in many ways, Tabletop Simulator reminds me of the computer game Neverwinter Nights, published by BioWare in 2002. It was an RPG computer game based on the D&D universe, and it included a quest generator sandbox where you could create maps, NPCs, script interactions, and conversations. Oh man, how I waited in anticipation for months for that game to come out. And when it finally did, I filled a whole notebook with maps and campaign ideas, sat down at my computer to construct it, and then... Alright. Okay. I quit. Similarly, I think Tabletop Simulator has potential, but potential and popularity are two different things. To increase its chance of success, I think several things would have to go drastically in its favor. First is gaining the involvement of board game publishers. For example, I believe that publishers themselves have provided art assets to Board Game Arena, which has benefited the development of games on that platform. And speaking of Board Game Arena, is its popularity due in part to its development environment? And how does this compare to Tabletop Simulator's development environment? Is theirs proprietary? Then there's potential barriers to entry. Tabletop Simulator is a super neat concept, but will the near $15 price deter potential users when there's multiple other free alternatives available? And is the lack of rules enforcement actually another barrier? Now, I'd think that building in rules enforcement would not only be a monumental undertaking, but it may even be the antithesis of what the system was designed to be in the first place. So it can be a catch-22. Now, don't get me wrong, I've daydreamed about a tool like Tabletop Simulator for years! Decades even! I'm old. Oh, I would love for it to succeed, but I think it has quite a few substantial hurdles to overcome in order to do so. For now, I think its greatest potential is as a tool for RPG players. But even then, I can't help but be reminded of what became of Neverwinter Nights. Not much.
Okay, we're about halfway done here with my favorite game expansions, so let's get jumping into that. But before we do, I need to fix something I said last week. Last week I talked about the pitch car expansion, and I actually said the same one twice. I had them in two different ones. What I meant to say last week was that my number 60 was actually Pitch Car Extension 1. And I like this one the best of all the Pitch Car expansions because it adds the jump. Pitch Car without the jump to me is okay. Pitch Car with the jump is phenomenally fun. Every time I play, the jump gets everyone excited. Everyone likes the jump, except maybe the people who keep failing it. It's the great equalizer in racing. Super fun. Pitch Car, the jump, which comes in Extension 1. Okay, so let's start today. Here, first of all, we have the Crown and Glory expansion for Warrior Knights. Now, Warrior Knights is out of print at this point in time, and I don't know if it will ever come back in print, but if you ever want kind of a grandiose fantasy-style game with politics and intrigue, I mean, really, it almost does as good of a job as simulating like a Game of Thrones scenario as the Game of Thrones board game does, in a different way. And this expansion added technology. You already were dealing with religion and power and stuff. Now you had technology, you had special mercenaries. It just added a whole bunch of different things without actually adding too much complexity in the rules. And I like that. There was just more stuff. So great expansion. Then we have there was just a sheet called New Buildings for Puerto Rico. Now, Puerto Rico is a fine game, one of the highest ranked games, and I like it. The problem I found with Puerto Rico is people have very set strategies for the game. But I like the new buildings because you mix some of those new buildings and some out, and so now everything was changed just slightly. How do you work with this combination? And each game had a slight difference of what buildings were available or not. Now, in the new deluxe version of Puerto Rico, they added this expansion right in, which I think was fantastic because I use it all the time. I use it every time I play because it changes things just slightly. So like, ooh, I'm going to get the large market. Ooh, not in this game. So now what am I going to do? The game is still very strategic. These new buildings worked really well. If you can find them, get them. Then Apocalypse. This is an expansion for Conquest of the Planet Earth. Conquest of the Planet Earth was a fun game. It was a cooperative and a competitive. The competitive part was garbage, but the cooperative game was incredibly fun, good enough that it's one of my favorites, and it's still on my shelf at this point in time. Apocalypse helped it out a lot because what it did was it made the Earth heroes stronger, made them better, added in navies and huge battleships. It also made the superhero really annoying, and then it added in some really cool new monsters and things that you could have, and more bad guys. It felt like it doubled the amount of stuff in the game and doubled the variety. Lots of fun. Great expansion. Then this one here, I'm going to kind of cheat, and I'm going to say all the expansions for Ascension. Because they're all different in their own way. And the thing was, Ascension just got better and better as each expansion came out. And I'm about to review, this week probably, Dawn of Champions expansion, and that's a good expansion for Ascension. But so was the Realms Unraveled, and I forget the names of all the different expansions. And I was like, well, which one do I like the best? I kind of like the ones where you upgrade people. That's pretty cool, but I liked the Realms Unraveled because they had multi-talented people. The new one gives you a champion. So I'm mashing them all together, all the expansions for Ascension, so you don't have to ooh, which one should I get? Just grab a couple of them, and it will really help bring out the game. And then finally today, the Master's Addendum for Duel of Ages. Now, you guys know I like Duel of Ages, and when Duel of Ages came out, it was launched with 7 expansions. Something that I would kind of yell about today. I'd be like, why are you launching with all these expansions? But at the time, when it came out, I was like, oh my, all this stuff. And it was just very great. Okay, well, they took a while, and then they're like, okay, we're going to finish the set with a Master's Addendum. And they had people that write in the characters and stuff. I must have wrote in like 50 characters trying to get a character or 2 in a set. I did get 2 in, which is exciting. But just this, it added a ton of characters, it added a ton of stuff. It added a rule book, which put all those other expansion rules in one big rule book and just tied everything together. And I really enjoyed that. By the way, if you've never played Duel of Ages, you should certainly check it out. Hey, that means we're halfway done at this point. with expansions, 50 more to come, and they only get better.
Hello there, Board Game Inspector Bob Boxfart here. Today, on Board Game Theatre, we will be exploring a word that has come to be synonymous with Mexican culture. That word is luchadors, the famous Mexican wrestlers. Mexican wrestling, or lucha libre, is a sport that is developed in the mid-1800s, but didn't gain national recognition until the early 1900s. The most iconic feature of Mexican wrestling, however, is the colourful masks which the wrestlers wear in the ring. These masks hid the identity of the wearer, thus adding a measure of mystery to the sport. In today's game, Luchador, Mexican Wrestling Dice, by Backspindle Games, players take the role of these luchadors and try to defeat each other in the ring. Every round, players will roll 4 dice and use the results to strike at their opponent while at the same time blocking incoming strikes. If their opponent is weak enough, pin results may be used to roll the pin die. If successful and the opponent fails to break loose, it can spell the end of the game.
You roll like that? You need some protein powder to build your muscles. Like me, I like to pump. And I pound you up. Yes. Oh, look at that. Oh.
It will take training, toughness, and tenacity to claim the title. Who will climb the ropes and swan dive their way to victory? Will it be La Tormenta or Bam Bam and Fuego? Find out now.
Hi, Suzanne here with this week's featured board game app. Haru Ichiban was one of my most anticipated games out of Essen in 2014. I saw a picture of the laser cut limited edition and I had to have it. When I heard there was an app version released too, I had to have that. So let's take a quick look at this Bruno Cathala abstract. Delightfully serene, Haru Ichiban takes place in the Emperor's Garden as 2 players compete to become the Imperial Gardener by manipulating the lilies into desirable patterns. Players get dealt 3 random flower buds with values between 1 and 8 from synchronous decks and secretly select one. The player who reveals the smaller bud gets the dark lily pad in their color and gets to move a lily pad. The player with the higher bud value gets a lily pad of their choice and sets the dark lily pad for the next hand. Rounds end when a specific lily formation is created, each having different point values, and the first player to 5 points wins. Taking a slightly cartoony look, the Haru Ichiban app is pretty and serene. Some of the interface isn't super intuitive, but once you go through it the first time, it's easy. There are a few nice atmospheric animations that I enjoy, but it would be nice to have an option to turn them off since many players find things like that distracting. The rules have tons of visual examples, which is really helpful and make it easy to learn the game. There are 2 AIs or a nicely done 2-player version that is really fun to play on a tablet because you don't have to pass the device. Even though I am terrible at this game, I think Haru Ichiban is a lovely abstract and a well-done app. I do wish it had online asynchronous play, but for a solo or in-person abstract board game app, I recommend you give Haru Ichiban a try.
So this came up this week when we were talking about the Dice Tower Awards, and someone said, hey, there should be an award for indie gamers. And then somewhere else I saw some people saying, we're here to promote independent game design. And I would like to posit to you, dear watcher, what does that even mean? I've always been confused by this, where people are like, oh, let's stick up for the little guys, let's stick up for the little guys. Well, first of all, that's a little confusing to me because in this business, pretty much everybody's a little guy. Yes, Asmodee has grown to be quite large. And yes, Fantasy Flight has gone from being a small company to a much larger company to merging with Asmodee. And Hasbro's big, Mattel's big. Other than that, do you think most of these companies are big companies? Take Stronghold Games, for instance. Are they not small? Yeah, they're small. They have 1 or 2 employees. And yet, they're not considered an indie games publisher. Second of all, as after we take out the size, does that refer to designers? Now, there's a few designers who are rich because of one game they've designed has really taken off. Richard Garfield, Alan Moon, and so on. Then there's about 20 designers who are doing it full time, either because they work for a company that's paying them to do that, or they're freelancing and have a lot of games out there. But they're not rich or wealthy by any means. Are they not independent designers? I really fail to see how money factors into this at all. So I think what people mean by this are itsy-teensy little games. Or at least they were little when you started. So 10 years ago, Fantasy Flight. You'd be like, oh, I'm behind an independent publisher. Fantasy Flight gets big. Where was that line where they crossed being an indie publisher to part of the establishment? And I would posit to you again that none of these guys are not indie. We already are the Indie Gaming Awards. The big name gaming awards are given out by the Toy Association stuff, and they go to Hasbro and Mattel for all their stuff. They don't even look at all these games that are on the shelves behind me. So we are the indie. So what does it mean then when someone says give indie gamers a chance? That means give these tiny little guys a chance. Hey, the fact is they will get a chance. They will become well known if their game is good. It happens. Very rarely do small, absolutely incredibly wonderful games fly under the radar. Just hardly ever happens. It does, but then they will eventually get picked up and published. Now, there are many good games, or almost great games, that fly under the radar, but that's because they're not great. They don't reach that thing. Like, for example, last year, Small Realm, small publisher, and yet they made a big splash because the game transcended how small the publisher was and how small the game itself was. And so I never sit around thinking, oh, we really need to help indie game designers, because I want to help indie game designers already. I just consider all of them that. I don't sit around thinking, oh, indie game publishers. No, I love them all. Now, we do have a small game publisher category because we do want to highlight companies that are starting out in the board gaming business, and that should be really good enough, because if the games are good enough, that company will make a name for itself. Hey, one of those small game publisher, Space Cowboys. They made Splendor, and now they're very well known, enough to the point where Asmodee is printing their games. Remember Plaid Hat and how tiny they were and how big they were? It's how the business goes. If you put out excellent games, you will grow and you will do well. And I know there's someone watching and they're going to say, well, company blah, blah, blah has made excellent games. Yes, but there's other reasons that you can fail too. You can make an excellent game and have poor business decisions. You can make an excellent game that only a niche is going to be enjoying that game. So it's not going to appeal to a broad market, so you're not going to grow that much either. And so I don't feel like gaming awards miss these indie game companies. See, and this is another rant, but the fact is, I stand 100% behind Dice Tower Awards. I know most of the people on the committee. These awards were voted by now over 50 people who are involved, and we watch all the board games. There is no possible way we can see all the board games. But I would very much say that very few excellent games are going to pass under our radar, because when one comes through, someone will say, hey, you need to play this. And people said that about a few games, and I went and hunted them down, and I sometimes said, nah, they aren't as good as that person thinks they are. And so I feel pretty strongly that we brought some great games, like, for example, Paperback. That's a small little game that many people have not heard of, but you should go check it out. But you know what? Abyss is a bigger game that more people have heard about, and we still think that's worth you going to check out. So I don't really care when I get a game. Ooh, I should give this one special consideration. I should, because it's a smaller company. Blah! They're all small. Some are smaller than others. But that shouldn't change how I feel about the games. Indie games, we already got your back.
All right, so we're here with Ben Hilliard from Daedalus Productions. What do you got here?
A great question. So what we've got here is we make inserts for board games, very similar to many others. But our focus is on how can we get the game to the table faster. I know we've all had that day where we thought, hey, we want to play our favorite game, but our spouse, our friends, whoever said, no, I don't want to wait for you to pick it, set it up.
Right.
So if you're familiar with Merchants of Venus, it's a 20-minute setup, 20-minute teardown, and it's my personal favorite game. So I thought, how can we eliminate that barrier? So with our insert being a quick start, quick play insert, we decided that we got to do something to fix that. So with it, I can have this game set up, ready to play in under a minute, or right around 1 minute. So with 20 minutes on front, 20 minutes on back of cleanup and setup, 40 minutes, 3 minutes to clean up now with the insert.
More time to play.
5 minutes, 35 minutes spare. That's another game.
That's great. That is awesome.
So that's really our focus and our goal. Eclipse, and our Eclipse insert, also our goal is to always take expansions and make sure we can get them in the same box. Robinson Crusoe, Dead of Winter, Cosmic Encounter. This is all 6, I believe it's 6 anyway, expansions, also put into the one box. Small World, Marvel Dice Masters. And then we also make funny, stupid things like our Dice Tower. We also do Eldritch Horror and Le Havre. And Caverna, which is it got stolen.
You cannot put Caverna in the box it comes in. How can you possibly?
We did it.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, all right.
And another board game breakfast has come to a close. One thing I should mention is that the t-shirts, we have some t-shirts on our website of different sizes and things. They've now added larger sizes, and more importantly for people like me, tall sizes. Hooray! So go check those out and support the Dice Tower with your whatever you're wearing on your t-shirt. We'll be adding Board Game Breakfast and Board Game Blender t-shirts soon, so keep an eye out for those. Anyhow, we got lots of great content coming out for you this week. See you at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time today for some question and answers. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vasel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool stuff in stock at CoolStuffInc.com.